Right Balance podcast. I'm Diane Wright, your host. Here is where I'd like to share stories and interviews with leading practitioners and coaches, all under the health and wellness umbrella. We'll be including holistic therapies, inspirational people, and a vast array of experts to help you get on the right path. Join me every week for advice and information that will offer help and support, because we all need the right balance in life. Hi, everybody. This podcast is a rather personal one. This is about me, myself, Diane Wright. It's always hard sometimes, I think, when people ask about your personal story, the hows, the whens, the whys, and the whatabouts, about your journey, how you got into a particular line of work or something that resonates with something important for everybody to hear, I think is paramount. So today's podcast is all about my journey and the ups and downs, as I say, and the life struggles that I've had, where I've been, what I've done, and how I come out the other side, or maybe how we're still traveling through the tunnel of life. Anyway, I'm going to take you back on a little journey. This starts roughly in 91, 92, 93, roughly. So I'm also going to pop this thought into your mind as well. There was no internet. There was no sort of social media at all, so there was nothing you could, as a go-to medium, you couldn't use anything like that. So my upbringing was very much with libraries, books, and things like that. So from the beginning, I was very active, always have been, a go-getter, and always will be a go-getter. I was always active. I was very active during my school years with hockey, so physically very fit. I was a keen horse person, a horse rode, I competed, country upbringing, very outgoing, da-di-da. Anyway, I thought at the time I was maybe just pushing my body too much. I just turned 21 years old, and I thought, maybe I'm just doing too much. I also joined the local police constabulary, and I joined as a voluntary police officer known as the Specials. And I was working also at the time in travel. And I was working 9 till 5, coming back and then doing maybe till 1 o'clock in the morning shift with the local police, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It was a fascinating insight. And I just thought I was just doing too much. I was exhausted. I was fatigued. I wasn't hungry, and I thought, I'm not eating right. And everything seemed to just fall out of kilter. And for me to be able to just get up and go and do something, and then not being able to do it, there was something wrong. That then transpired into very, very achy, stiff joints, a bit of swelling around the wrist and the ankles. My knee wouldn't work sometimes. My knee joint wouldn't work. I couldn't bend it. My hands would seize up, and it was like, what the hell is going on here? This is just not me, So a couple of trips to the doctors, just doing too much, you're not eating right, da-di-da-di-da. And I just thought, no, you just know yourself when there's something not right. You just know. So a couple of trips again to the doctors, and blood tests were taken. Nothing, absolutely nothing came up on my tests at all. And at the time, I knew nothing about any of the blood tests. So I didn't know what I was asking for, what they should be looking for, or were they really listening to my concerns? All these things go through your head. And it was on one particular event when I was driving the car that my knee would lock and I couldn't brake. And that scared the living daylights out of me. So a little bit hot-headed when things aren't going right. I stormed back to the doctors and said, look, there's something not right here. I'm not right. My joints aren't working properly. There's no reason. There's no blood test, but I need you to look further. At this particular point, I was then referred to a rheumatologist. And the rheumatologist at the time was a nearly retired doctor, lovely man. A spade's a spade was basically how I could say what he was like. Anyway, a couple of tests and still nothing. And then I think it was about the third trip that I had to go and see him when I had a so-called flare-up, which was a new word to me as well. And this was, my fingers were swollen, my wrist was swollen. I had a slight red mark on my wrist, on my both wrists, and I had to go and see him immediately. So I did. So they took some blood tests, and unbeknown to me at the time, that particular test was called the LE test, which stands for, long word coming, lupus erythematosus. And this was brand new to me, absolutely brand new. My next appointment a week later was to discuss the blood test from this particular test, which had come back positive. He said to me, these were his words, he said, we've now discovered that you have this thing called SLE. He said, when you leave the office here, the nurse will give you a leaflet on it. He said it so quickly, there was too much information for me to take in. There was 101 questions going around my head, but it wasn't the time to question somehow. It was quite weird. And I think when you've got an old style doctor, and back in the day, it was, you just listened and went and was supposed to know what they were talking about. I didn't. I really did not have a clue. I went outside and I said to the nurse, do you have a leaflet on this SLE? The nurse hadn't a clue what I was talking about, bless her. And I went out of there not knowing exactly what was happening to me, my body, anything. It was brand new to me. The questions that comes from this that I want to really get out to everybody, if you're not sure about anything, big, small, indifferent, you have to ask the question. Even if it sounds nuts to you, I don't care. You have to ask that question, because you will leave that room, as I did, thinking, what's going on here? What's this all about? You know, why are they telling me all this when it doesn't really make sense? There were so many questions. I then went back to the doctors, and they definitely diagnosed it through the consultation I'd had previous, that it was lupus was my underlying condition. Those that don't know anything about lupus is an autoimmune condition that attacks people in various different ways and severity. There's two kinds. There's the discoid lupus, which is the skin disorder, which you often find, it looks like birthmarks on the face. It comes up on the cheeks, and it's red. It looks quite inflamed. Sometimes it goes onto the hands and legs and body, but predominantly you can see it on the face. It actually is called the butterfly rash. And lupus is, by all accounts, in name terms, the wolf in sheep's clothing. It's Latin. So the other kind is systemic lupus, which is generally the whole body. So because I had aches and pains, I had stiffness, I had slight red marks on my wrists, but nothing. I had nothing on my face at all. And but it was my joints. It was severely disabling pain. It was awful. I'd been on so many medication for this that it didn't touch me, or they felt like I was just not with it at all. I knew I had been drugged in some way. It was awful. I hated the feeling. I hated the feeling of not being in control, I think. So me and drugs at that particular point didn't match at all. I hated it. It really felt, looking back, it really felt like I was really poisoning my body with medication. And I really want to emphasize that, because later on in the few more podcasts that I'll do about this, it was really prevalent to me at the time that it wasn't a way that I wanted to work with medication, or it didn't suit me, or, you know. So the systemic lupus erythematosus is very much the whole body. It was a few months after this particular incident at the doctors that they initially diagnosed me, that it was very much, you have to get on with it. I have very good friends who were in the health business or health NHS business. And I remember them not wanting to show me their textbooks because at the time, back in the 90s, early 90s, the life expectancy for lupus was no more than 50-year-old. And they never wanted to show this because the evidence was that there was no specific drugs that would really help or get rid of it or whatever. So they never really wanted to discuss it with us. And that was super hard because you have friends that really want to help and they didn't want to say the real things at the time, what was going on. So anyway, the other side to the systemic lupus is it can attack all or some of your vital organs in your body, i.e. your liver, your lungs, your kidneys, your blood, your heart, your brain, even in fact, as well. So all the systems can be attacked. They talk about the body is attacking itself as an autoimmune disease. This is going to also be another podcast that I want to bring out about this, because this is something that I do not believe is possible. Your body will fight for you every single day that your heart is beating. Hence, it keeps your heart beating. It looks after you when you have invaders of bacteria or infections or whatever. So my theory about that is for another podcast, which I will discuss. So then a few months after that diagnosis, it was really about trying to learn to live with it, trying to find out as much information about this disorder as I could. The library became my best friend. Again, the books weren't the best because the outcome was very doom and gloom. I am not like that. I'm like, I need to know. I will not go that way. If there's a direction you're meant to go, because maybe it's the long way around, but you get there in the final destination. No, I need the quickest way. I need to know why, when, and how these things are going to work or why it works. There's a saying, I'm laughing because there's a saying, when you want to know everything, you want to know the far end of a bit of wind. And that's me. That's exactly how I am. So anyway, moving on from that, the months that led on from that particular diagnosis were horrific. I had to stop work, the pains in my legs, my blood was very sticky. I had experienced several blood clots in my legs. I also experienced a nasty one in my lung that nearly sent me to the other side. That's going to be another podcast. But the living with this disorder was, in one word, horrific. I hated it, and I totally empathize with anybody going through it. The tests that followed was very much the same. The tests included a lot of blood tests, and in my eyes, looking back, it was all the same. They talk about inflammation markers as well, and this basically just shows how much the body is under attack. And obviously, these are inflamed. These are higher than normal, so there is an attack going on. There is a particular blood test called the LE test, or the lupus test, that can diagnose a little bit more. Because I was experiencing a lot of joint pain, I was under the rheumatologist, and this was one of the things that another medication came in from their point of view, which I didn't really agree with at the time. Moving on from that was the devastating news of being told that this disorder had now affected my kidney function. My kidney function was tested with a biopsy while I was in hospital. And at the time, back in 93, it was the only option to dampen down the disease, which they'll talk about often if you hear about lupus patients, is dampening down it with medication, is both steroids and sometimes chemotherapy. There's also autoimmune disorder medication as well that you can use. Azathioprine was the one I was on. I also had chemotherapy. I had cyclophosphamide, and I was also on very high dosage of steroids, which there's another story. Anyway, they made me 100 times worse. 100 times worse, the medication, and it didn't work for me properly, what I thought it was. Initially, on the find of my kidney function, they said that my kidney function would only last roughly, it was deteriorating, it would probably go into end stage, or which is end stage, 5-stage renal failure in around about 6 years' time. I had actually worked many years prior to that at the Calvert Trust in Kielder, Northumberland, which looks after mentally and physically handicapped children and adults on dialysis. And that was the only time I'd ever come across dialysis. I knew nothing about kidney failure at all. Again, there's no internet, so you can't Google anything. You can't just tap on your phone. So the library was my go-to. And I am a bookworm. I love books. And to try and find out information about kidney failure, it was all medical jargon. It meant nothing. It's like all these huge words, I couldn't even say them, never mind spell them, so it was a journey and a half. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want that end state. To me, that was the end. That was the end of life. That was the end of everything. I knew people had transplants, but that wasn't even in my mind. That wasn't even that. I'm not going to go down that road. That isn't me. And so anyway, I kept that thought of 6 years in my mind, and I thought, no, I don't want to go there. I need to do something different. I just want to put this disclaimer out. I do not want to put this is not for everybody. This is my journey. This is about how I wanted to work my life. And I stopped every medication I was on. I completed the chemotherapy. And after that, I decided enough was enough. My body was struggling big style. And I needed to go back to how I was. For me, that was to stop anything that was going in my body that was new. So that was medication. So I did. And I literally went cold turkey. I don't keep diaries. And I've asked family members what I was like, because I do not remember. I remember drinking an awful lot of aloe vera juice at the time. And clearing my system. I remember sort of feeling of a refreshment. I felt like I'm not a big exerciser, but I feel like that adrenaline sort of feel good factor after exercise is how I started to feel. I felt like I was totally cleansing my body, and that's how it came about. And I did. I stopped everything, and I never looked back, really. That was super important time for me. There was a lot of conflict because this was the way they did things. This was the norm. This was how we fixed lupus. They didn't fix it, but they helped you with it. Well, in my eyes, it wasn't helping at all. They said, and I was still under the rheumatologist for blood tests, and they also said, keep an eye on this. And I was regularly tested every 3 to 6 months. I was regularly tested. And eventually I did pull myself round. I had been out of work for a number of years at that point. And I started back in travel for a little while. And I was back with the horses, and all sorts of different hobbies came about. And I started to get my life back to normal. Anyway, I think we'll jump on to the next chapter another day. This is my journey. This is about Diane Wright, the reflexologist, the ups, the downs, and everything. I would love you to join up with me next time. I'm not sure when it's going to be, but I'll pop it into the podcasts in the next few episodes. The whole journey going from lupus, end-stage renal failure, transplant. Oh my God, who said that? Anyway, there's more to come. Thanks for listening, and hope to see you next time. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Right Balance podcast. Hope you enjoyed the content. Please tell your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to the show. It will also be uploaded to the social media channels like Facebook and YouTube, including all the show notes. I hope you'll join me next week. Stay safe.